Alright, so this could be for the women. I think I'm gonna just have to do eventually another time a more in-depth teaching on the parable of the seed sower, but for now I kind of just wanted to share what I feel like um he's letting me see, because it's really deeper than what the church is, what anybody's telling you that it means. And it's a very important parable, because if even in Mark 4, if you don't understand this parable, you're not going to understand the other parables. And it shows this is how you know you've been converted. And conversion, it's like the repentance, returning to him, and actually walking in his truth. That's how you know you're actually converted to him, when you understand this parable. Because if you can unlock the parable of the seed sower, which is not even really you unlocking it, it's his spirit who lets you see these things, then you're gonna understand the other parables. Like, this is like, I don't know if it's like, I honestly wonder why this one, because I feel like there's other parables that are more simple, but this one somehow must be quote unquote, like, I guess, I don't know, there's something with this parable, because it's very applicable to us in today's time. Which seed will you be? You know, there's three basically: don't go to the distance, fall away, all these things in some form. And the only seed that was good was the fourth seed, and that's who you want to be. And the way I'm understanding it, because when you understand prophecy, like with Ephraim, Jacob, all these things, the way I'm understanding it, it sounds like the first three are more like Ephraim, because there's different, but that's the thing, it's not just one side, I feel like, of Ephraim, because there's different, like, the way at least in my head, I divide it up differently, but it's still all the same spirit working within Ephraim, if that makes sense. Like, they're all under the Antichrist spirit of error, the delusion, pride, all these things. Woe to the crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, is Isaiah 28. It says, like, that defines them there. But there's some where it's like, I'm trying to think about how to say this. Like, because there's the Ephraim that go after their idols, which is literal idols. But there's even the ones who go after their covetousness, and that doesn't always have to literally be blatant, like have a cross, Christmas tree, all these things. But covetousness is even likened unto idolatry. Okay, but it can even be things like that, going after their own thing instead of the ways of the Father. So going after the ways of the world. Like, there's so many different ways to split up Ephraim. You know what I mean? But either way, like I said, it's still the same spiritual heart condition within each of these three seeds you see. They're different, but at the same time, they're not different, if that makes sense. Because either way, they just don't go the distance. They all stop somewhere in their walk. And that's something you can even see within the Christian churches and Torah movement. They'll start their walk, like, they'll be pricked, like, they'll have the conviction, but they don't keep hearkening to the conviction. And then there's even groups where they can get complacent and, oh, I'm a Baptist now after going to this church, now I'm happy. Or there's the Torah movement, they go as far as the feast, or like, they don't go further, they don't progress, they don't grow, they're not bearing the fruit, they're not understanding the word, they don't have the knowledge of God, all these things, right? And that's not who you want to be. But anyways, getting into the first seed, because I just wanted to give context of how I'm understanding the four seeds breaking it up, because really the three before the fourth one, it's Ephraim, and then Jacob, his servant. That's the one who endures till the end. That's the one who you want to be, who overcomes, who bears the fruit, all these things. That is who you want to be according to scripture. Okay? But getting now into the first, first seed, and explaining it, because the way I'm understanding it, and I don't want to say it's just one particular group, because I can even see it being the people we're talking to constantly, because we're day in, day out, praise Yah, trying to dish the truth out to his people, but obviously they don't want to listen. So it could even be people, like, they'll hear, but they're like, reject it, sort of thing. But I think it's even deeper than that, because it talks about the enemy takes away what was sown in their heart, and also that they don't understand. Like, they hear it, but they don't understand it. And the way I understand that, like, there's been people, like, they might join a Sabbath, a space, whatever it is, like, they'll join, but they don't get rooted in the word. They can't really, they're hearing it, but they're not really understanding it. Like, they're not, because that's the thing, the way how you know you hear something is also if you're doing it, and that's probably part of the problem if you don't start becoming like a doer of the word. then whatever you thought you had, right, that will get taken from you. So I wonder, in some form, the way I'm understanding it, it kind of makes me think of like 1 Peter 2, because you either stumble to the right or to the left. So the right, though, if I'm remembering right, because if you read Ezekiel 4, it shows that I'm pretty sure he laid for Israel on the left 390 days. And then for Judah, I'm pretty sure it was on his right side for Judah, and that was 40 days. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, Israel's the left and Judah's the right. But so the right would be, in this case, Torah movement. Even though, yeah, it's Judah, but what you need to understand about the Torah movement is they follow after the winds and lies of Judah. That's why they still fall under the category of Judah, and they still have the same heart posture, because they're not, just as Judah wasn't going after like the lost sheep, the Gentiles, like the ones who were scattered, intermixed with the, nations because of their like captivity. It's the same thing today. Just as Judah didn't do that, the Torah movement doesn't either. Instead, they might be like, feast, let me throw zit seeds, let me throw the Paleo Hebrew, all these things to his people instead of the truth. And the way I'm understanding that is they're stumbling either to, like I said, the Torah movement, or they're stumbling. So Israel in this case would be the Christian churches, because they're doing it like what Israel did before, they're doing today. Like, it's nothing new under the sun. Like, they're worshiping God, but they're also worshiping Baal at the same time with Christmas, Easter, Halloween. So they're offering up their children to Baal year round. All these things that literally, just think about the church and then go read what Israel did, like 2 Kings 17 through 25, and all these things, and how they also, that's the thing, Israel, they wouldn't listen to correction either, and that's exactly how the churches are, because again, the idols blind you, they make you deaf, dumb, and blind, they puff you up, pride, like all that stuff that will hinder you from hearing, and that's exactly what's happening. Again, both sides really, but anyways, I hope I'm making sense, because that you need to define that first, so then you can understand 1 Peter 2 further, and not just be like, oh yeah, literally Judah, literally Israel. And even then, it's like, people, they'll think that Israel and Judah, they're one and the same, but Jews are literally the 2 southern tribes. Israel's the northern 10 tribes. So you need to understand there's a difference between the two. And also, portions of Judah did return, or a portion of Judah returned to the land after their captivity. Israel didn't. They remained scattered. I don't know if it says to this day. I wanted to say that, but I don't remember if that was for them being scattered to this day. They're still scattered, or what. But I mean, think about why Yeshua even says, he came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. If they weren't lost, he wouldn't have need to come for them. But because they never came back after their captivity, their time of punishment was over. Like, at least there's no records in history, nowhere in prophecy you see that. You can hopefully get the gist of what I'm saying. But anyways, you need to define that first, so then you can understand stumbling to what side, because you either stumble to the lawless side, the churches where you're not even striving or anything at all, or you go to the Torah movement side, and that's something that I feel like the first seed is like, so they'll hear it, but then whatever was sown in their heart, which obviously it wasn't much for it to be taken away so quickly, right? It gets taken away, and they either, the way how I'm understanding it, they either go to the right or to the left, because it talks about how Satan, right? Satan takes away that which was sown in their heart, and that makes me think of the people who because if you read 2 Thessalonians 2, Satan, yes, he's the wicked one, man of sin, son of perdition, but you need to understand prophecy deeply. It's deeper than that, because even Jesus, he's the man of sin, son of perdition, according to scripture. That is who Satan is, and that is who everybody is following in today's time, besides the people who he wakes up, who actually go the distance, sort of thing. But anyways, that's who people are following. So and then you read Hosea 6 verses 4 to 5, and it shows that Ephraim, it also defines Ephraim and Judah as the wicked. So these are the wicked with the wicked one in their temple. And because again, these people who the first seed, they don't get rooted. They're hearing it but not really perceiving it. They're not really understanding, Like they just, it's like the veil is still there in some form. The way I'm understanding it, they're the part of the people who go either again to the right or to the left. So they might hear it, but then they get caught up. Like there was, I don't know why I'm thinking of this particular woman, but there was one in the group for a time. So I don't feel like it fully can be her. But what's interesting is after she left the group, she went to like Paleo Hebrew and I don't even know. She went to like nonsense sort of thing. And that happens with a lot of people. But I'm saying this because usually though, it's somebody who hasn't really been in the group long. As how I'm understanding it. Because the group is the end days service, the watchman. And the way how you can know that is because they know prophecy. They understand. Like, who is the wise man? You know, he shall understand these things. And that's Jacob. That's his servant. Those are the ones who understand. They'll understand his parables, understand prophecy, all these things. So it's like they'll come here, they'll listen, right? But then it just goes away, and then they're away. How I'm understanding it, they stumble because of the wicked one comes. So that could be Ephraim or Judah. So so they could stumble towards the Torah movement, or they could stumble again with like Christianity, all these things. And then you know, that's how it gets taken. At least again, that's how I'm understanding it. Or even could be, because that's the thing, there's even people who they've woken up to the truth, but then they turn aside. And I feel like that's also falls under that first one, where they either stumble because again either Christians or the Torah movement, or because of an evil servant who knew the truth, but they come against the group and all that. And that's how that seed can be taken. But I even understand it. I'm saying it, I feel like it's even more, I think there's so many groups, I can't say it's just one group, because even within my family, like we've told them stuff and they've listened ish, like they'll hear it, but they're not perceiving it, they're not understanding, because of course they're still in their idols and sin and all that stuff. So it's like I feel like even there, because there's been points they kind of were hearing and they kind of wanted to, but then certain things happen, the seed gets taken, and it's like basically back to square one all over again, which sucks because it's my family. I want them in the truth. But anyways, hopefully that made sense for the first seed. I probably over explained that, but it's so that way other women can get context, because again, it's deeper than the surface. Now the second seed, moving on, because I hope that makes sense for the first seed. The second seed though, so these are the ones, so they hear the word and they receive it with joy, but they have a stony heart. And then when the trials, tribulations, all these things, especially the persecutions, hit, they endure for a while, but then they fall away because they had not what? Because they didn't have deepness of earth. That means they didn't get rooted in the truth. Because again, if you're rooted in the truth, that's also another thing I feel like all these have in common. Because that's the thing, even the thirds, even though it doesn't say that, but it's like if you're really rooted, again, you're not gonna fall away, at least not easily. And with the third one, they probably were rooted for a time, but probably got unrooted, because if you let certain things back in, you know. But this is about the second seed. But anyways, I'll get into the third seed, but that's how I'm understanding it, because the fourth one's the one who hears it, understands it, and they build their foundation on the rock. But this one, it's like I think it's like, it makes me think of maybe they started to build the foundation, because obviously in order to even experience persecution, that means you have to be doing the work. So obviously you had some sort of foundation, right? You were on the, because I'm saying that because I think Luke 8 or one of the accounts says they were on a rock. And that makes me think Yeshua's our rock. We're supposed to be on Yeshua. He's the rock. He's the foundation, right? We're supposed to lay the foundation starting with the gospel, because that's the foundation Yeshua laid, and that's what we're supposed to lay, and then build off from that, from the prophets and like all these things. But again, these people, they didn't have deepness of earth though. So maybe at one point they were rooted, but then the trials, persecutions, all this stuff happens, and they don't. And it even says they have a stony heart. So it means their heart isn't circumcised, or like maybe not. Well, that's the thing. It says that he'll take out the stony heart and give you a heart of flesh, right? You're supposed to then have a heart for him and a heart for his truth. But if somebody still has a stony heart, that means they haven't really done, there's something they went wrong with where they didn't do the full conversion. Like they heard it, they're like, oh yeah, like, and they're, that's the thing, I've seen this happen too. Like a lot of women, they got excited, they're like, yes, praise Yah, this is the truth, da 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 da, like all these things, and they're hearing it, but then they something happens and immediately taken away. Like, because again, they didn't get rooted. So now I try to make more of an effort to, like, when I'm talking to like newer sisters, get rooted sort of thing. So this isn't you, because I've seen this happen where a lot of people are like, yeah, and then boom, they're gone. And that's not somebody who he wants to be. And that could be somebody, it could be, they could be in a few months, they could be a few weeks, it could be somebody like that where it's not long and then boom, they're gone. But really it's because of persecution. I actually was wondering, possibly because if they have preeminence of men or something, because if they're falling because of persecution, like I was wondering, like, I wonder if that happened and then that's why they fall away. But there was even, what I think of, there was a legit example where there was this brother who was in this group. He came out of the Catholic whore, which is the Catholic Church. I think I said Catholic whore, yeah. So that's the Catholic Church. But anyways, that's the great whore according to scripture. And he came out of her, but his wife sadly didn't join the journey. And he was a part of the group for like, I don't know, quite a bit. I think at least maybe a year. I don't know, maybe a little bit longer. I'm not really sure. I don't remember the time frame, but it was definitely surpassed like 6 months. Like he was even doing the work and all these things. But sadly, because of the Matthew 10 sword, instead of, you know, counting it as joy again, I don't know to what extent, how bad it was. Which sucks, because either way, no matter what, it's not fun to go through that. I can't imagine. But he ended up falling away. And not just like a little fall. He went completely back to the Catholic Church because he wasn't rooted. So that's a real life example of like that seed, the second seed, being fulfilled in this group. And like I said, I've seen it with many women. I feel like it's usually either the second or third seed. Like at times, maybe first seed, but really it's like the second or third one. But I especially think of the second one though, because again, like I said, a lot of women, they get excited, but then something causes them to stumble. And I don't know if it's always just persecutions, because there's, I think in Luke 8 it says temptation, and obviously that could be anything. That could be, because I think even temptation, I would have to look at it in the concordance, so don't quote me, but I think it could mean trials. So if there's a certain thing maybe they're supposed to overcome, like, and it doesn't even have to necessarily be like legitimately like temptation as in lust, for example. It could be other things, and maybe in the time of testing, like fail that, and I don't know. But it's like even that one, it just shows like, because that's the thing again, if you're rooted in the word, you wouldn't fall away for something like that. So I don't know, I hope that makes sense for the second one, because it's the ones who they start working. Because in order to, again, get persecuted, you have to start somewhere. That means you're sharing the gospel. You're doing some sort of work for God. So they started to plow, but they turned back. And that doesn't necessarily, again, they don't have to necessarily fall away like the guy did, like all the way back to the Catholic Church. It could just be like maybe they start not speaking with Saul, or like they're doing the work, but not really. And I don't know. Because again, that's even deeper as well. But that's how I'm understanding, at least again, at this time, like the second seed. And a lot of these seeds, like a lot of verses I was seeing, it's almost, they're not literally the same, but they almost like interchange sort of thing, because it's, some of them will like even be a part of the first seed and second seed, and then other one second and third seed. So they kind of all still go a little bit hand in hand, but it's still different people, like groups of people at the same time. And even what popped up, you know, it's interesting, it was I think Psalm 104 for the second seed, and that one was like, I'm pretty sure it was that one, and it's about Israel, because those psalms are all about like, I think Abraham, Israel, all these things that happened, retelling of Moses. But this one was, it was showing that basically, you know, they were happy, but like it was like they were saying his praise, all these things, but they soon forgot his works, which is a common theme if you've especially read the Psalms, how Israel, they would hear him, they would listen, they're excited, they're like, yes, sing his praise, but then they would go back to their idols or something and fall away. And even I would have to read it again by Isaiah 58 as well, because it talks about the people who they seek me daily, they delight to know my ways. But I'm pretty sure that one's not like the aftermath when you read like Isaiah 50 about the fast acceptable and the promise for his servants sort of thing. Yeah, that's to Jacob. But the first few verses, I'm pretty sure it's the ones who like they're doing this literal fast, but not the fast that he delights in, sort of thing. And they're seeking to know and they're excited, but they're not doing what he says to do. And so I don't know. It's kind of that's almost like I guess the second one too, because they're excited. They're like, yes, praise Yah, this is the truth. But again, they have a stony heart. Their heart is hardened. And I don't know if that means that they're just, I don't even know to what it, because I was looking at the difference between uncircumcised and stony. And stony just seems like probably, the way I'm understanding it, is probably people just hardening their heart to grace. And the more and more you do that, obviously, the more and more grace isn't going to have an effect on you. And it would make sense then they don't endure the persecutions and fall away. And some form, oh my God, there was even recently, I mean, hopefully she repents, but there was a sister who recently fulfilled that, where she was having persecutions. I don't know what else, but it was bad. And then she said, basically, to like the sisters, like the ones who were really talking to her, I wasn't, but this was sharing testimony, so I'm sharing testimony regarding it, how she didn't feel convicted to do the royal law anymore, which is a very scary thing. It's like, what do you mean you don't feel convicted? Because that's the whole purpose of him waking you up. It's so you dish out the truth. But she had a lot of persecutions and things like that. It's like the Matthew 10 sword with her husband was bad. But that's the thing too, if you don't get refreshed, get renewed in his truth and rooted in it, then you will be susceptible to fall away. And that sadly happened to her. She couldn't endure the persecution, like her trial, whatever it was, she had to overcome. But again, like I said, I hope she repents, because this was like recently, I don't know if it was like a month or so, or a few weeks, giving her space, I think, to repent. But that's an example. There's another one where there was another sister, like there's just certain examples. There was another sister too who was also part of the group. Like she probably knew as much as me, if not maybe more, and she was getting persecuted by her husband also as well, and it was bad, but she wasn't talking to anybody about what she was going through with the Matthew 10 sword. And then, you know, she was like on the phone with my mom, and my mom was trying to convince her, like, don't leave, and she's like, I won't leave, I'll leave. And then the next day she leaves, and it was like, what sort of thing. And that was another, there's so many examples of people who do this. And it's sad, who've come within the group, they come to the truth, they endure for a while, because these ones were in here for quite a bit. I don't know how long the first sister I was talking about was in here, maybe a year, I don't know. The other one was for a bit as well, like over a year, I'm pretty sure, like maybe 2 or something like that. But they were both here for a while, but they had the Matthew 10 sword, persecutions, all these things, and next thing they fall away. The other one's still making videos, but again, it's not, I don't know, it's not really what it needs to be on. It's not really edifying, like maybe in some form, but I don't know, it's not maybe convicting as much as it should be. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just, if you knew how she sounded before and now, you would see a difference. Like, it's very different. Less authority maybe would be the best way to say it. But then also, like I said, then this other sister who said she doesn't feel convicted to do the royal law anymore, that's an example right there of the second seed where they don't want to do the work. So it's like they go off, do something else, and that's not who you want to be. Anyways, now getting on to the third seed, because I hope those examples, because again, they were coming back to remembrance, so I thought I would talk about them to give more example, to show you who the second seed is, because seeing it in real life, it's like, it helps you then to understand it better and then be able to explain it. And then, oh man, third seed. So these are the ones who, like, they're hearing it, right? Because again, these are also ones who are plowing. They're plowing through the briars and thorns, because even Ezekiel 2:6, it shows, because that's the thing. If you read Ezekiel 2:3 and 33, it shows that you're supposed to pick up the watchman calling. When Yeshua says, what I say unto the porter, I say unto all, watch. And guess what? Even in Ezekiel 33, the Septuagint, one of the verses, it says what he, so instead of it, I'm trying to remember how, I don't know how the KJV says it, but he says how basically how even the people are supposed to watch in Ezekiel 33 in the Septuagint, which is like basically very similar to what Yeshua says. And basically if you don't do that, then something like with the snare will come upon you, which will be tribulation. And what does Yeshua say? If you do not watch, I will come upon you as a thief in the night. And that's all sixth seal event talk, like tribulation, all these things. So seeing that was pretty cool. I mean, I already know these things, but it's like just like more nuggies confirmation. But it shows that's what you're supposed to do. Watch. Otherwise, he's coming unto you as a thief in the night. So these are the ones who are watching. Because Ezekiel 2 talks about in verse 6 how when you basically are plowing the field and all these things, so you're working through that you're going to be surrounded by briars and thorns. So that's the covetous people, Ephraim, all these things around you, right? Because it does talk about the briars and thorns there. And even in Genesis 3, it was showing, because that's actually a curse put on Adam. So women do have to plow, but it's not the same way how men have to plow. Like, men really do have to plow, and like they have more responsibility on their shoulders than the women. Not saying we don't at all. It's just the way how, I guess it's like the tier severability. It's different for men and women. Men, like, they were called to do this. Like, and I'm not saying women aren't either. We are called, especially in today's time, with great tribulation coming, all these things. It's going to be the manservants and maidservants doing the work. But there's a difference with the men. Like, they really, like, this is what they were ordained for. They were literally created, basically, to do this work. Because, again, Adam, he had to do, and that was a part of the man's punishment, is what I'm getting at, is that he had to work through the briars or plow through the briars and thorns. And you see Ezekiel 2, where he's like, don't be afraid of them. You know, I know they're rebellious, all these things. No, though briars and thorns be with you, like, I'm really with you. So, you know, like, I don't know, like, it was just, like, interesting seeing it. Not interesting, but anyways, so that's like, it's like they're plowing through the briars and thorns. That's who his servant is. So these were people who obviously at one point had to be like Jacob, you know, or something. But these are the ones who, again, they don't remain in the truth. Again, they also fall away, which is what, again, what all these seeds like have in common, is they don't, because that's the thing, even in 2 John 1, if they were really of you, they would have remained with you. But because they left, they're basically not of you. And I know I just said it, like, I said that's way more kid-like than how it's really written. But that's basically what 2 John's 1's talk about, the ones who, they were among you. They were here. They were plowing with you. You were doing the work. But then they get taken away. Or they fall away, all these things. But anyways, though, with the third seed, is they get choked out by the briars and thorns, so the covetousness, and that could be even covetousness within themselves, like the world, like because it's the thing, you have to get the love of the world out of you, because the ways of the world are at enmity with God, and if you have the love of the world in you, then you don't have the love of God within you. And I think that's what 1 John 2, I think it's 1 John 2, 15 through 17 shows, and that's not who you want to be. In the scriptures, but I think it's even deeper than that, because it's even like, it even talks about drunkenness, like, but it's not literal drunkenness, it's this pride creeps in. And I think it's also then it's like, you just feel the weight of, I mean, that's the thing, no matter what, you're gonna feel the weight of everything. But it's like, instead of going to the Father and talking to the brethren about whatever you're feeling, it shows that, because if you look at choked out, it means to drown. So, and the best way I could describe that is like, well, at least how I understand it, because when I was in the world and I was like really in the depths of my sin, all these things, it just felt like everything was hard and I was drowning, and like I couldn't like, that was the best way I could explain it. Like, I felt like I just couldn't breathe, like I was going nuts because everything was like crushing me. And that almost seems like that's how it is with this third seed. And again, that's basically what's going on with the third seed. Talks about the lust, cares of this world. And that even makes me think of you know, the difference between Mary and her sister. Mary sat at Yeshua's feet, and that would be likened unto the fourth seed because they listen, so they hear and understand. That means they're gonna hear it, they're gonna perceive it, it's gonna hit their heart, they're gonna be part of the wise who understand these things, and they're gonna do it, they're gonna build their foundation on the rock, right? And that's like Mary. She heard the good word and that won't be taken away from her. But the third seed's kind of almost like, I don't know why I can't remember. Is it Miriam? I can't remember the sister's name right now, but it's Mary and hers. Oh, Martha, right? Martha, you see Martha, right? She's like focused on all these other things that instead of listening to Yeshua sitting at his feet, which is like crazy, and I get it, because she's serving in another way. She wants to literally help, but I'm sure it's even deeper than the whole literally helping. But it's like you see a difference between the sisters, Mary and Martha, how Mary was just at his feet, was eating up his word, wanted to hear it, just nothing else, but that nothing else mattered. Even if she wanted to serve, like that was like I don't know how to explain it besides that, like she listened and heard it. But then Martha, it's like, because she's so focused on everything else, she's not hearing his words. And I would say that's kind of basically the best way I could describe like the third seed. It makes me think of the difference between Mary and Martha. And this is even the people, and I think actually the second seed does this as well, according to Ezekiel 33. It's the ending of Ezekiel 33, where they sit before you, they sit at your feet, they hear your words. It says a lovely song unto them, but they won't do them. Like they hear it, but they won't do it. They won't go the distance, and they even talk against you in their house. But with their mouth they show much love, but their hearts go after their covetousness. And that 100% is the third seed, because they fall away because, again, the briars and thorns, the covetousness and the love of this world, all these things, that causes them to fall away from the truth. And that's even, you know what's interesting, even one of the verses for the third seed, it talks about the deceitfulness of riches. Deceitfulness, sorry, I'm probably saying it not wrong. I meant right, not right, not wrong. I'm probably not saying it right, with the deceitfulness of riches. But that's like, the way how I understood it, that was like, it made me think of Revelation 3, where because how else would it say like this deceitfulness? Like, oh, I am rich, I'm in need of nothing, sort of thing, but you don't know you're poor, wretched, and pitiable and naked. And he counsels those people to buy from him, the truth and all these things. But it's like the third seed, like, but I don't know, I guess it's like they let the pride back in, like, I sit a queen. And I just thought of somebody who fell away. I don't know if she would fall into this category, because like she went completely backwards, like to Jesus, no Sabbath, all these things. But something I remember another sister who, praise Yah, still with the group, shared is that she started thinking like she didn't need to read the word. Not the good sister who's still here, but this sister who fell away, she felt like she was like, oh no, I'm good, I'm set, like I'm his servant, blah blah blah, got haughty, it was like, I don't need to read my Bible really, which is like, that's not good, because again, if you're not rooted in the word, you're gonna be susceptible to falling. And that basically happened with this woman, and she went all the way backwards. And again, I don't know if she would fall into it, but this is even people who, I honestly do think this is even like the evil servants, like the third seed. I'm sure all these seeds probably in some form could be the evil servants to some extent, but this one for sure, I would say, because there's a certain phrase, I can't remember what it says, but it is like, and I'm trying to remember it right now, where it's like they go and there's a certain thing, because I remember I asked this question, like, if it was likened unto that, they go back to their drunkenness, because it talks about the evil servants, they smite, but then they go eat and drink with the drunkards, so they go back to the ways of Ephraim. And there's a certain way how the third one says it, and I don't know if it's in the Matthew 13, Luke 8, or Mark 4, all three versions, but it makes it sound like that's who it is. Where, again, they're here, they're fellowship, they're doing all these things, but then lust, pride, all these things come back in. It doesn't have to always, again, be literal lust as in sexual, Because again, it could be even likened done to idolatry or covetousness, or all these things start coming in, and they even start thinking, like have the I sit a queen attitude instead of staying humble. And because of that, that could cause them to then look at how then they treat the servants, and because of that, they eat and drink with the drunkards, and they fall away, sort of thing. And that's how I'm understanding it for those ones. And that's again not who you want to be in the scripture, like, at all. Especially the third one though, because that's even worse. Because you know what, the Luke 8 version says that they actually start basically bearing fruit, but they bring no fruit to maturity, to perfection, I think is how it says it. So they started to bear it, but it wasn't the good fruit you're called to bear, because you're called to bear fruits of repentance, fruits of obedience, fruits of knowledge, fruits of the Spirit. But it's even judgment and righteousness, because if you read Isaiah 5, what does he expect from his people? But instead, what came up, if you read the Septuagint, it shows it's briars and thorns. So instead of righteousness and judgment, that was the fruit he was looking for from his people, Israel and Judah. But that's the same, what happened before will happen again. There's nothing new under the sun. So even though he was expecting that then, he's still expecting that now. But instead, what came up was briars and thorns, wild grapes, is what it says. And you can't, that's the thing. Even James 3 talks about the grapes, like you can't, I feel like I'm going all over the place. But it's basically, again, showing you that you either are bearing the good fruit, right? Corrupt tree can't put forth good fruit, and neither can a good tree put forth corrupt fruit. You're gonna know them by their fruit. And that's like, I feel like you can see that with the third seed. If they're not bearing the perfect fruit, the fruit to maturity, what fruit sorry, why did I say it like that? What fruit do you think it's bearing? It has to be the corrupt fruit, the briars and thorns. And it even shows in Hebrews 6 that those are the ones who are going to get burned up. And a lot of these ones that have in common, especially the second, third seed, is John 15, is they're not abiding. They're not keeping the commandments in some form, whether it's the loving God, because you love God by keeping his commandments. So if they're breaking the 10 commandments, then yeah, they're going to fall away. Or like if they're not loving their neighbor, because that falls under, because that's the thing, you need both. Otherwise, you're going to fall away. Because it talks about those who abide in him, they're going to bear much fruit. Well, how come none of these are bearing fruit besides the third seed? And sorry, it's not the third seed, the fourth seed. I meant to say the fourth seed. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place right now. But the only one that bears the fruit is the fourth seed. Why? Because it's abiding. It's a listening to the Messiah, doing the word, reading the word, keeping the commandments, loving God, loving neighbor, all these things. Humble, contrite heart is what they have, and they fear and tremble at his word. They don't take it as a light thing. And I think that's another thing, is a lot of these seeds, they're not laying these things to heart, because if they really laid it to heart, they wouldn't fall away. But it's like, even with there was something I was saying beforehand. Right, so those who abide in him, they're gonna bear much fruit. But the ones who don't, they're gonna wither away and then be cast. In the end, they're gonna be burned up because they didn't bear the fruit they were called to bear. And then you keep reading Matthew 13, because you're supposed to then get the explanation. It shows you why they fall away. But there's even more parables after this that you need to know, because it's basically all going back to the first one that he originally was talking about, like the wheat and tares. Basically, that's what he's getting at within the parable of the seed sower, is the wheat and the tares. Because the tares, it shows that those who do iniquity, and I'm trying to remember how he says it. But the ones who don't abide, so you have to think about like that. What happens to them? What happens to them? They're cast into the fire. They're removed, sort of thing, like the tares. Versus the wheat, they remain. They're gathered in the barn. And that's who you want to be. You want to be Jacob. They're the ones who bear the fruit. They're the ones who endure till the end. Even though it's tough and it's like, oh man, there's so much that goes into it. But they have the pure heart that endures to the end. They are the blessed. They are the ones who have the Beatitudes written to them, because they actually do what the Beatitudes say, even though it's tough. But the rest of the seeds, again, they're not laying these things to. There's something, obviously, in order for somebody to fall away, there's something wrong with their heart. all these three seeds before the fourth seed, something was off with their heart that even caused them to fall away. The first one, again, no understanding. Second one, they like heard it, so they must have had some sort of understanding. But the persecutions and all that stuff got to them, and again, I feel like the part of that would be the preeminence of men. And then the third one, love of this world, probably, or I don't know fully to what extent that would look like, because I feel like it's even deeper than covetousness, the love of this world. But they go back to eat and drink with the drunken, which is like the evil servants do, and they smite. And again, I'm not saying just because it's the third seed that the other ones are exempt from being evil servants. But it definitely makes sense it is the third seed, because those are the ones who probably were really plowing, really working, but then again, something happens, and they fall away. But anyways, this was actually longer than what I wanted it to be. So, but hopefully another time, because this was more me explaining each seed, but I hope to do an actual teaching on it where I get into the scriptures, not just like sit up here, speak, because this is where I'm at right now, and I don't even know if I fully explained it, because there was definitely certain things I was missing. I feel like with the first, second, third seed, because there was a lot I was looking into, but I do hope, at least what I've said, I hope it gives you a gist of who these people are and who you don't want to be, because which seed, again, at the end of the day, which seed are you going to be?